At 2:17 a.m., I answered a 911 call from my own phone number. The voice on the other end was mine, and it told me I had less than an hour left to live. I thought it was a prank. I was wrong. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're continuing our survival world in Minecraft, but while we play, I found another really creepy story from Reddit for you guys. This story is about a 911 operator who gets a call from his own phone number at 2:17 in the morning, and the person on the other end claims to be himself from the future. Trust me, this story only gets creepier as it goes on. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. I never thought I'd end up posting something here, but after what happened last Thursday, I can't keep this to myself anymore. If anyone here works in emergency services or has ever heard of anything like this, please let me know because I still don't understand what happened to me. I'm 28 years old, and I've been working as a 911 operator in a small city for the last 4 years. My job has always been pretty boring. People think we're constantly dealing with murders and massive disasters, but most shifts are just drunk drivers, family arguments, car accidents, and the occasional medical emergency. I've gotten used to screaming, crying, and panic over the phone. After all these years, there isn't much that can surprise me anymore. Last Thursday, I started my night shift at 10 o'clock. My wife was already asleep when I kissed her goodbye before leaving for work. She didn't even wake up. If I had known that would be the last time I'd see her normal, I would have stayed home. The shift started like any other. I grabbed some coffee, talked for a few minutes with the guy finishing the day shift, and sat down at my desk. Until 2 in the morning, nothing unusual happened. A few noise complaints, one man who thought someone was walking around his house, but the police found nobody. I was already counting the hours until the end of my shift. Then 2:17 a.m. came. A new call appeared on my screen. I automatically reached for my headset but froze when I saw the number. It was my phone number. I checked again, thinking I was tired and seeing things. But no, it was my exact cell phone number. At first, I assumed it was some kind of system error. Stuff like that happens sometimes. I pressed the answer button and said the usual line, 911, what's your emergency? There was silence on the other end. I was about to repeat myself when I heard heavy breathing. It sounded like someone had been running. Then the voice said, "Listen to me carefully. You don't have much time left." A chill ran down my spine. The voice was mine. Exactly mine. Every little detail, every pause, even the way my voice gets slightly hoarse at the end of a sentence. I nervously smiled and said that this was a pretty stupid joke. Then the voice said my full name, then my date of birth, then the name of my dog that died when I was 11 years old. I stopped breathing. Nobody at work knew that. The voice on the other end was shaking. It sounded terrified. Then it said, "Don't go home tonight, and whatever happens, do not answer your wife's call at 3:11 a.m. I asked who this was. The answer didn't come right away. Several seconds passed before I heard a quiet whisper. "It's you. 1 hour from now." After those words, the line went dead. I sat there for a few more seconds with my headset pressed against my ear, almost expecting the voice to come back and tell me it was all a joke. But there was nothing except silence. Then my desk phone rang. I jumped so hard I nearly dropped my headset. It was Mark, the security guard. He had been working there for almost 10 years and never called upstairs unless there was a reason. His voice sounded strange, like he had just seen something he couldn't explain. He asked, "Did you just go outside?" I told him no, that I hadn't even left my desk in the last 30 minutes. There was silence for a few seconds, and then he said, "You should come down to the security room, right now." I asked him what was going on, but he only repeated himself. "Just get down here." I had a bad feeling, but I went anyway. The dispatch center feels creepy at night. Dim hallways, automatic lights, and the constant hum of the air conditioning. As I walked toward the elevator, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I looked over my shoulder several times, but there was nobody there. When the elevator doors opened on the first floor, Mark was already waiting for me outside the security room. He looked pale. I had never seen him like that before. He didn't say a word. He simply pointed at one of the monitors. The screen showed the camera above the main entrance. Mark rewound the footage a few minutes. The timestamp in the corner read 2:23 a.m. The entrance doors were closed and the parking lot was almost empty. Then a man stepped out of the darkness and walked toward the building. At first, I thought it was just some random person. But when he got closer to the camera, my hands went cold. He was wearing my black jacket, the same one I had worn to work that night. Then the man looked up. It was me. My face, my haircut. Even the small scar above my right eyebrow was there. My legs nearly gave out. Mark looked at me and quietly said, "I thought you were messing with me when you said you hadn't gone outside." I couldn't answer. I couldn't even speak. On the footage, my double stood in front of the doors and stared directly into the camera. He didn't even blink. Then his lips slowly stretched into a smile. It wasn't a normal smile. It kept getting wider and wider until it looked completely unnatural. A chill ran through my entire body. Then he raised his hand and slowly waved at the camera, as if he knew we were watching him right at that moment. Mark stopped the footage and asked, "Who the hell is that?" I wanted to tell him I had no idea, but at that exact second, something moved on another monitor. The camera facing the back service entrance showed a figure standing in the dark. We both turned toward the screen. It was the same man, my double. But that was impossible. The two cameras were at least a 3-minute walk apart, and both timestamps showed 2:24 a.m. He stood perfectly still, staring directly into the lens. Then he slowly raised one finger to his lips, as if he were telling us to stay quiet. For a few seconds, Mark and I just stared at the screen without saying a word. I honestly can't remember the last time I felt that kind of fear. My double was standing by the service entrance, completely motionless. It didn't even look like he was breathing. Then the image on the monitor flickered for a split second. The screen filled with static, and when the picture came back, he was gone. Just gone. Mark quickly switched to the other cameras. Parking lot, empty. Main entrance, empty. First floor hallway, nobody. Then he pulled up the camera facing the central lobby. My heart nearly stopped. He was inside the building. My double was standing next to the elevators, only a few hallways away from us. Mark cursed and grabbed his radio. He tried calling the second security guard who was patrolling outside, but all he got back was static. The radio wasn't working. We looked back at the monitor. My double was no longer standing by the elevators. Now he was walking down the hallway. Slowly, very slowly. His head was lowered and his arms hung at his sides. I couldn't take my eyes off him. Mark kept switching between cameras. Next one, he was near the records room. Next one, he was walking past the break room. Next one, he was standing by the stairwell. Then we realized something terrifying. He was coming toward the security room, toward us. At that exact moment, my cell phone started ringing. The sound was so sudden that I almost dropped it. I pulled the phone out of my pocket. My wife's name was on the screen. I immediately looked at the clock on the wall. 3:11 a.m. My whole body went cold. I heard my own voice from the phone call in my head. "Whatever happens, do not answer your wife's call at 3:11 a.m. Mark looked at me. I must have gone completely pale because he immediately asked what was wrong. I didn't answer. The phone kept ringing. Once, twice, 3 times. I wanted to answer it so badly. Maybe my wife really needed help. Maybe something had happened to her. But I didn't pick up. The ringing stopped. I let out a breath. A second later, my phone vibrated again. A text message. I opened it and felt my stomach drop. It said, "Why aren't you answering?" I quickly typed back, "Are you at home?" The reply came almost instantly. "No." Then another message appeared. "I'm outside your work." And then another. "Let me in." I looked at Mark. He had no idea what was happening, but he could tell something was very wrong. I typed back, "Are you joking?" A few seconds passed with no answer. Then my screen lit up again. I'm standing right outside the door. We both slowly turned toward the monitor showing the main entrance. Nobody was there. Absolutely nobody. Then one last message appeared. "No, not outside the door. Behind you." I don't even remember how fast I turned around. At that moment, I was ready to see anything. My double, my wife, some guy wearing a mask. But there was nobody behind me, just the empty security room, the quiet hum of the computers, and the dim lights hanging from the ceiling. I was about to let out a breath when I heard a strange sound, a soft tapping somewhere in the hallway outside. Tap, 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 like someone was slowly running their fingers along the wall. Mark heard it too. We both froze. Then every monitor in the room shut off at the exact same time. The screens went completely black. The room fell into an unnatural silence. I could hear nothing except my own breathing. A few seconds later, the monitors turned back on, but instead of the security cameras, every screen showed the same message, white letters on a black background. "You should have answered." A cold sweat ran down my back. Mark quietly cursed and started pressing keys, trying to bring the cameras back online, but nothing worked. The message wouldn't disappear. Then my phone vibrated in my hand. Another text message. The number was unknown. I opened it. There were only 2 words. "It's inside." Before I could say anything, the lights in the room started flickering. Once, twice, 3 times. Then they went out completely. We were left in total darkness. A few seconds later, the emergency lights came on. The hallway outside the glass door was now illuminated by a dim red glow. That's when we heard footsteps. Slow, heavy, thump, 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 like someone was deliberately taking their time. The footsteps were getting closer. I felt Mark holding his breath beside me. Then we saw a shadow move past the glass door. Someone had just walked down the hallway, but I had seen enough. The person was wearing my black jacket. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. Silence. Then the handle slowly turned. I don't know how many seconds we stared at that door handle. Maybe 3, maybe 10. It felt like time had completely stopped. The handle slowly turned all the way down, and the door began to open. Very slowly, almost silently. I could feel my heart pounding in my throat. Mark took a step back and grabbed the flashlight sitting on the desk. The door opened about 8 inches, and then stopped. Beyond it was the dark hallway, lit only by the dim red emergency lights. At first, I didn't see anyone. Then a hand appeared from behind the door. My hand, the same watch on the wrist, the same small scar on the thumb that I got back in high school. Then a face appeared in the doorway. My face. I was staring at myself. It felt like looking into a mirror, but something was wrong. His eyes, they were completely empty. No fear, no anger, no emotion at all. Just a cold stare, like he already knew how this night would end. Then he smiled. The same unnaturally wide smile we had seen on the cameras. Then he spoke, and hearing my own voice coming from someone else nearly made my legs give out. "You shouldn't have answered the first call." The room suddenly felt even colder. Mark asked who he was, but my double didn't even look at him. He kept staring only at me. Then he took one step forward. I instinctively stepped back. He smiled again. You think I came here to hurt you? I didn't. I'm here to save you." I couldn't answer. I honestly had no words left. He took another step. "In a few minutes, she'll come. And when you see her, don't believe what you're looking at." At that exact moment, my phone started ringing in my pocket. I flinched. My wife's name was on the screen again. I looked up at my double. His smile instantly disappeared. For the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. Real terror. He quietly said only one word. "Too late." Then, from somewhere at the end of the hallway, I heard my wife's voice. "Honey, are you here?" My heart nearly stopped. That was impossible. She should have been at home, 20 minutes away from here. But I heard her voice clearly. Then came the sound of footsteps. Slow, calm. She was walking toward the security room. My first instinct was to run into the hallway. If that was really my wife, then she could be in danger. I took a step toward the door, but my double instantly grabbed my arm. His hand was freezing. Not cold. Freezing, like he had been lying in a freezer for hours. He looked me straight in the eyes and quietly said, "Don't go near her." I pulled my arm away. "That's my wife," I almost shouted. He slowly shook his head. "No, it just knows how to sound like her." The footsteps in the hallway came closer. Then my wife's voice called out again, now only a few feet from the door. "Why did you lock yourselves in? Open the door, I'm scared." It sounded exactly like her. The same voice, the same slight tremble she always had when she was nervous. I almost reached for the handle, but then I noticed something strange. My wife never called me "you" when she was scared. She always called me honey or babe. Right now, she sounded like someone trying to remember how people talk to each other. Mark noticed it too. He stood there, pale as a ghost, staring through the narrow glass window in the door. Then he slowly turned back toward me. I had never seen that kind of fear on another person's face before. He barely whispered, "Don't open it." I stepped closer to the glass and looked outside. My wife was standing in the hallway. She was wearing the same pajamas she had on when I left home. Her hair was down and her arms hung calmly at her sides, but something was wrong. She wasn't blinking. She was just standing there, staring at the door. Then she slowly smiled. A chill shot through my entire body. I had seen that smile before. It was the same smile my double had on the security cameras. People don't smile like that. My wife slowly raised her head and quietly said, "I know you're in there." Then she took one step forward, then another, then another. She stopped right in front of the door. I looked into her eyes and nearly collapsed. They were completely black. Not dark because of the lighting. Completely black. No whites. No irises. Just darkness. She spoke again, but this time it wasn't her voice anymore. It sounded deep and distorted, like several people were speaking at once. "You were never supposed to answer the call." The temperature in the room dropped so much that I could see my own breath. Behind me, my double quietly said, "It found you." Then the woman outside slowly raised her hand and began tapping on the glass. Tap, tap, tap. And with every tap, the lights in the entire building flickered. Tap, tap, tap. Every time her fingers touched the glass, the sound seemed far too loud, like she wasn't tapping on the door, but directly inside my head. After the third tap, the lights in the hallway went out. A second later, they came back on. The woman was standing closer. I didn't even understand how that was possible, because she hadn't moved between the flickers. Another tap. The lights went out again. When they came back, she was pressing her face against the glass. Her black eyes were staring directly at me. I took a step back. Mark started repeating to himself that this wasn't possible, that this couldn't be real. Then my double finally spoke. His voice wasn't calm anymore. It sounded like he had said these words hundreds of times before. "Listen to me carefully. We don't have much time left. It can't come inside on its own. It needs you to let it in." I looked at him. "What is it?" He stayed silent for a few seconds. Then he answered. "I don't know what to call it. I call it the mimic. It finds someone, copies their voice, their face, their memories, and waits until you believe you're looking at someone you love." My wife's voice came from outside the door again. This time it sounded completely normal. "Honey, please open the door. It's dark out here." I almost took a step toward the door. My double grabbed my shoulder. "Don't listen to it. It can read your thoughts. It knows who you want to see." I asked him how he knew all of this. He looked me straight in the eyes and said something that made my blood run cold. "Because I've already lived through this night." The room went silent. At first, I didn't understand what he meant. Then he continued. "I'm you, 1 hour from now. That call was from me. I was trying to warn you." I looked at the clock. It was 3:23 a.m. My mind was spinning. If he was telling the truth, then in 37 minutes I would become him. "What happens next?" I asked. My double stayed quiet for a long time. Then he answered softly. "You open the door." I shook my head. "No." He gave me a sad smile. "That's exactly what I said." At that moment, the woman outside stopped tapping. The sudden silence was somehow even worse. Then we heard something else in the hallway. Footsteps. But this time they were moving away from the security room. Someone was walking away. We all stood there listening. The footsteps grew quieter and quieter until they finally disappeared. A few seconds passed. Mark slowly walked to the door and looked through the glass. The hallway was empty. My wife was gone. He let out a relieved breath. Then every monitor in the room suddenly turned on by itself. Every screen showed the same image. The camera feed from the dispatch floor, my workstation, and someone was sitting in my chair. He slowly raised his head and looked directly into the camera. It was me. The room fell completely silent. Every monitor was showing my workstation, and I was sitting in my own chair. He didn't move. He just stared directly into the camera. Then, very slowly, he tilted his head to the side, as if he were studying us. Mark took a few steps back. I felt sick to my stomach. My double beside me quietly cursed. For the first time, I saw real fear on his face. "No, this isn't supposed to happen," he whispered. I looked at him. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer right away. Without taking his eyes off the monitors, he said, "Last time, it only appeared once. If there are 2 of them now, then the cycle is breaking." Before I could ask what he meant, the man on the screen smiled. Then he slowly raised his hand and waved at us. After that, every monitor changed. Now each screen showed a different part of the building, and on every single one of them, there was me, in the parking lot, by the stairwell, in the server room, in the break room, in the second-floor hallway. Dozens of versions of me were staring directly into the cameras. Some had their heads bent at unnatural angles. Some were smiling. Some were standing perfectly still. Mark began backing toward the wall. "What the hell is this?" he whispered. At that exact moment, every version of me on the screens took one step forward, then another. They were all moving toward the cameras, as if they knew we were watching them. Suddenly, the lights went out again. This time, completely. Even the emergency lights were gone. We were left in absolute darkness. A few seconds later, we heard something in the hallway. One footstep, then another, then a third. But these weren't just one set of footsteps. There were dozens of them. It sounded like an entire crowd was slowly walking toward the security room. Mark turned on his flashlight. His hands were shaking so badly that the beam kept jumping around the room. Then we heard knocking on the door. One knock, then another, and then dozens of knocks all at once. Someone was knocking from the other side. A lot of people, a terrifying number of people. Then I heard a voice. My voice. Open the door. Then another one, also mine. We just want to talk. Then a third. You should never have answered the call. A second later, there were dozens of my voices speaking at once. Mark started panicking. He kept shouting that we had to get out of there, but my double suddenly grabbed me by the shoulders. Listen to me very carefully. There is only one way to stop this. I stared at him while the voices outside grew louder and louder. At 4 o'clock, you'll get another call from yourself. Don't answer it. No matter what you hear, don't answer. That's how all of this begins. I was about to ask him something when the door suddenly shook from a powerful impact. Then another, and another. It sounded like dozens of people had started slamming themselves against it at the same time. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 3:57 a.m. There were only 3 minutes left until 4. The entire room shook with every impact against the door. The glass rattled, and the metal frame groaned like it was seconds away from breaking apart. On the other side, dozens of my voices kept speaking at once. Some were screaming, some were laughing, and some just kept repeating the same words over and over again. Open the door! Open the door! Open the door! I looked at the clock. 3:58 a.m. 2 minutes left. Mark was completely losing it. He grabbed a fire extinguisher and stood in front of the door as if that could somehow protect us. My double remained perfectly still. He wasn't looking at the door. He was staring at the clock. Then he quietly said, "This is where it starts." Suddenly, the banging stopped. Completely. The silence that followed was somehow even worse. Then I heard something scratching against the door, slowly, like someone was dragging their fingernails across the metal. A moment later, I heard my wife's voice, very soft. "Honey, please." Then I heard my mother's voice. She died 7 years ago. "Sweetheart, open the door." My hands went cold. Then I heard my father's voice, then my younger sister's, then my best friend's. One after another, every person I loved was asking me to let them in. My double closed his eyes. It does this every time. I was about to ask what he meant when the door exploded inward. It didn't open. It exploded. The metal bent and the glass shattered across the floor. We all jumped back. The hallway was empty. There was nobody there, just darkness. Then my phone started ringing. I didn't even have to look at the screen. I already knew what I was going to see. Slowly, I pulled it out of my pocket, my own number, exactly like my double had warned me. I looked at the clock again, 4 a.m. The room went silent. My double stared at me like everything depended on this moment. "Don't answer it," he said quietly. The phone kept ringing, once, twice, 3 times. Then something strange happened. The display suddenly changed. Under my phone number, a message appeared. Last chance. I looked up at my double. He went pale. "That wasn't there before," he whispered. The phone kept ringing. I don't know why, but at that moment I had the overwhelming feeling that something much worse would happen if I didn't answer it. It was like someone was whispering directly into my ear, telling me that I had to pick up. I looked down at the screen again. Last chance. Then I pressed the answer button. For a few seconds, there was only silence. Then I heard my own voice, but it wasn't the voice of my double. It sounded older, exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept in days. And it said only one sentence. "If you turn around right now, we're all going to die." At that exact moment, someone quietly said my name from directly behind me. I froze. The phone was pressed against my ear, and the voice on the other end repeated itself, this time louder. "Don't turn around. Whatever you hear, Don't turn around." But I could already hear breathing behind me. Slow, deep, like someone was standing only a few inches away. Then I heard my wife's voice. "Honey." My knees nearly gave out. It sounded perfect, exactly like her. Then I smelled her perfume. I knew that scent. She had been wearing it for years. I closed my eyes. The voice on the phone was almost shouting now. "Don't listen to it. It can copy everything." Behind me, the voice spoke again. This time it sounded terrified. "Please, help me." I started breathing faster. It couldn't be real, but at the same time, it felt too real. Then something happened that nearly made me turn around. I felt a hand slowly rest on my shoulder, an ice-cold hand. I almost looked, and then Mark screamed. I don't know what he saw, but it wasn't a normal scream. It was the scream of someone looking at something completely impossible. Then there was a dull thud, then another, then silence. "Mark?" I shouted. No answer. The voice on the phone became quieter. "You don't have much time left. Listen carefully. In a minute, you'll understand why I called. And when that happens, do one thing. Call yourself." Before I could ask what he meant, the light suddenly came back on. I instinctively looked up. Mark was gone. My double was gone too. The security room was empty. Completely empty. I was standing there alone with the phone in my hand. Then I slowly looked down at the floor. A dispatch headset was lying near the doorway. My headset. Next to it was my cell phone, a second cell phone. I checked my pocket. My phone was still in my hand. I looked back at the other one on the floor. Its screen was glowing. The date on it was tomorrow's date. My entire body went cold. I picked up the second phone. There was only one number in the recent calls list. My own. The time of the call was 2:17 a.m. Slowly, I raised my eyes to the clock on the wall. It read 4:01 a.m. Then I heard a phone ringing somewhere out on the dispatch floor. I walked out of the security room. The entire building was empty. The lights were on, the computers were running, but there wasn't another person in sight. The ringing was coming from my workstation. I walked over and looked at the screen. Incoming emergency call. Caller ID, my own phone number. In that moment, I understood everything. The voice from the future, my double, the warnings, all of it had already happened, and it was going to happen again. I looked at the phone in my hand and then back at the screen. My hands were shaking. Finally, I put on my headset and dialed my own number. The line connected. A few seconds later, someone answered. I heard my own voice, younger by 2 hours, and I said the words I had already heard tonight. "Listen to me carefully. You don't have much time left.